Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Deep Dive Daily. Okay, today we are diving into some of the most unbelievably dangerous chemicals ever created. I'm talking about substances so wild, they honestly sound like something out of a comic book. And to kick things off, we gotta go back in time. All right, picture this. It's Germany, 1939. Deep in some secret bunker, Nazi agents are messing around with this brand new chemical they've codenamed Substance N. And this stuff, it was absolutely terrifying. I mean, it would literally boil just by touching the air, explode if it came into contact with water, and it could melt entire bunkers into like hot porridge. The plan obviously was to use it as some kind of super weapon, but there was one tiny problem. It was too dangerous. Yep, you heard me right. This chemical was so completely unstable and just nightmarish to handle that even the Nazis were like, you know what? This is way too risky for us. And when they think something is too much, that should tell you everything you need to know about the level of danger we are dealing with here. So let's dive into our first chemical, shall we? And first up is that exact chemical, the infamous Substance N, which has a real name, chlorine trifluoride. So what is it that makes this stuff so unbelievably terrifying? Let's get into it. Okay, get this. Back in the 1950s, a whole ton of this stuff spilled. And it didn't just, burn the floor. No, it ate through a meter of solid concrete and then kept going through the dirt and gravel underneath. An eyewitness, probably in total shock, could only say the concrete was on fire. I mean, that's a sentence that just shouldn't exist, right? Concrete doesn't burn. So how in the world does it do that? Well, chlorine trifluoride is what's called a fluorinating agent, and it's basically the most aggressive one we know of. What that means in plain English is that it just violently rips other molecules apart. It's like a chemical bully that shoves fluorine atoms where they don't belong, which causes this insane, super hot reaction. It's actually a better oxidizer than oxygen, which is literally the O in oxidation. So what that means is it can burn things that we all think are not flammable. We're talking bricks, asbestos. It can even burn ash, the stuff that's left over after something has already burnt. It literally sets fire to things that are designed to be fireproof. So yeah, I think it's safe to say this chemical completely redefines the word flammable. All right, so we've gone from fire that can't be put out to, well, unbelievable explosions. Everyone, meet azidoazidide. Yes, that is its real name. It is a total mouthful, so for our sake, we're just going to call it AA. And it is, by far, the most explosive chemical compound ever made. So just how explosive are we talking? Well, the German chemists who first cooked this stuff up back in 2010 said it best. In their official report, they wrote that its sensitivity is, and I quote, beyond our capabilities of measurement. They couldn't even measure how sensitive it was because even the tiniest little bit, under the most controlled, careful tests you can imagine, just blew up. I mean, just look at this list of things that can make it explode. You ready? Moving it, touching it, shining a bright light on it, putting it into a spectrometer to try and study it, just turning the spectrometer on, and my absolute favorite, the best one on the list. It can explode for absolutely no reason at all. For real, they once had it sitting in a shockproof box in a dark room, totally temperature controlled. And it just went boom. That's just wild. Okay, so we've covered insane fire and things that explode. If you look at them funny, let's switch gears and talk about pure, unadulterated poison. Meet dimethyl cadmium. And this stuff, well, gram for gram, it is quite possibly the most toxic chemical on the entire planet. So how does it do its awful work? The moment you breathe this stuff in, it gets absorbed instantly into your blood. And then it basically acts like a tiny chemical chauffeur, or maybe more like an evil Uber driver. It picks up toxic cadmium and gives it a direct express ride to your most important blood-filled organs. We're talking your lungs, your kidneys, your liver. And here's the truly terrifying part about this stuff. It gets you twice. First, you have the acute effects. That means it starts wrecking your organs immediately. But let's say you somehow miraculously survive that initial attack. Well, don't start celebrating just yet. It's also incredibly carcinogenic, which is the scientific way of saying it causes cancer. So it is absolutely gunning to get you again years down the road. It's just the worst of both worlds. Okay, let's take a little break from, instant death and destruction for a different kind of horror. This is thioacetone. Now, This one won't explode or melt through concrete, but it has a very, very special superpower. It is responsible for what is quite literally the single worst smell in the entire world. And I am not exaggerating here, not even a little bit. A single drop of this stuff can be smelled almost instantly from half a kilometer away. Let that sink in for a second. One little drop. And people almost a third of a mile from you are suddenly hit with this absolutely foul, ungodly stench. The best story about this stuff, the legend really, comes from a city in Germany called Freiburg way back in 1889. Some chemists in a factory accidentally made some, and the smell was so powerful, so incredibly nauseating, that it caused people in the surrounding neighborhoods to just start spontaneously vomiting. It got so bad they had to evacuate the entire city. Can you imagine that? An entire city evacuated because of a smell? And finally, for our grand finale, we have to end with the king of corrosives. This is the most powerful super acid ever created by humans. It's called fluoroantimonic acid. And you just knew we had to have a crazy acid on this list, right? So what does superacid even mean? Okay, we all know sulfuric acid from chemistry class, right? It's that seriously strong stuff that you do not want to mess with. Well, fluoroantimonic acid is, wait for it, 10 quadrillion times stronger. Just take a second and look at that number on the screen. That's a 1 with 15 zeros after it. That is the scale of power we are talking about. It's a number so big, it's almost impossible for our brains to even comprehend how much stronger that is. So what can that kind of power actually do? Well, it eats through solid glass like it's cotton candy. It will tear through your skin, your muscle, but it doesn't stop there. It just keeps going until it completely dissolves your bones. In fact, the only thing we know of that can safely store it is Teflon. You know, the stuff on your nonstick pans? Its chemical bonds are pretty much the only thing strong enough to hold this monster back. And that pretty much brings us to the end of our list. You know, looking at these 5 chemicals, from super weapons that were too dangerous even for Nazis to smells that could evacuate a whole city, it really makes you stop and think. Science can create these absolutely incredible, powerful, and frankly, terrifying things, which just begs the question, even if we can make something, should we? Smash that like button if you enjoyed this, share it around, and subscribe for more. Drop a comment below with your views. I read every single one. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.